everyone, and welcome. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe coming to you from Los Angeles, California, and it is October 29, 2020. Tonight, we have updates from several of our correspondents across North America. Jessica Isidro in Houston shares with us an interview she had with Texas voters about their experience this past election and their hopes for the nation's future. May Ann Manzano Garzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
New Jersey bans single-use plastic paper bags.
Carlo Valdez in Union Township reports about New Jersey's Department of Labor releasing this week's unemployment numbers. We'll find out how those are looking for New Jersey. Macy Membrera in Sacramento reports about California voting in favor of Prop 17, and that is parolees being granted voting rights. Annabelle De Mesa in Glendale, California.
Los Angeles County assures voters that ballots dropped off at official drop boxes are secured, processed, and counted.
Anna Cui in Las Vegas reports about an election official explaining about the number of ballots left to count in Nevada as Biden holds a narrow lead. For today's business news, Bobby Soriano shares with us a look at the U.S. presidential candidates and their positions that affect the business world. Plus, Charmaine Serrera of our Hawaii Bureau reports about a public official there expressing gratitude for the Church of Christ's concern for the community. And Rachel Martin in Pacifica, California reports about a local high school there benefiting from an Aid to Humanity outreach event. And for tonight's virtual roundtable discussion, today is National Donut Day. We'll ask our team a very simple question. What's your favorite donut? Our coverage begins now. First, an overview of today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time Thursday, November 5, 2020, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 48,500,000. Top three on the list of countries with recorded cases are the U.S. with 9.5 million, India with 8.3 million, and Brazil with 5.5 million. Sadly, more than 1,230,000 lives worldwide have succumbed to this virus. Top three countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are, once again, the U.S. at more than 234,000, Brazil at more than 161,000, and India at more than 124,000. U.S. President Donald Trump maintains that he has won the election, which he says the Democrats are trying to, quote, steal from him. Take a look.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late.
Meanwhile, the Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden asks Americans to remain calm and patient as some states continue to tally votes. Take a look.
I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working. The count is being completed, and we'll know very soon. In America, the vote is sacred. It's how people of this nation express their will, and it is the will of the voters, no one, not anything else, that chooses the President of the United States of America. So, each ballot must be counted, and that's what we're going to see going through now. And that's how it should be. Democracy is sometimes messy. It sometimes requires a little patience as well. But that patience has been rewarded now for more than 240 years with a system of governance that's been the envy of the world.
In Philadelphia, as poll workers scrambled today to tally ballots in the key U.S. state of Pennsylvania, supporters of President Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Joe Biden held tense demos at the main vote counting center in Philadelphia, the state's largest city. Biden supporters want every vote counted, while Trump backers want votes that came in by mail after Election Day be ignored and support the president's claims that the mail-in ballot system was riddled with fraud. A crowd of activists from the organization Count Every Vote rallied in front of the city's convention center, where police and reporters from around the world also converged. On another corner, some 30 Trump supporters wielding flags and signs gathered behind police barriers and offer protection. Pennsylvania could finalize its election vote count as early as Thursday. In Wisconsin, Elections Commission Administrator Megan Wolf said every valid ballot has to be counted. Wolf defended the integrity of the work that election workers are carrying out in this pivotal state. Take a look.
According to the unofficial results gathered from our 72 county clerks' websites, the margin of victory between the top two presidential candidates is 20,470 votes, or 0.62%. And that makes that race eligible for a recount. The law further says that every valid ballot has to be counted. There's no cutoff time. And with almost 2 million absentee ballots that had to be counted, election officials took the time necessary to count each ballot in accordance with the very specific requirements of the law. Every step of the election process is publicly observable and is transparent. This includes voting at the polls on election day and the counting of absentees. It also includes the canvass and certification of the tally that is happening right now in municipalities and counties across the state.
When we come back, updates from our Eagle News correspondents in Houston, Texas, Sicklerville, and Union Township, New Jersey. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Final volume 450. FI on to 100%. Standing by. Constructioning.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Community, in our country, around the world, events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
You're watching watching Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basolyahe in Los Angeles. Eagle News correspondent Jessica Isidro of our Texas Bureau speaks to some voters in the Lone Star State about their voting experience and asks them what their hopes are for the nation. Take a look.
As elections are going on in Texas right now, we spoke to residents in the cities of Huntsville and Conroe to hear their thoughts regarding their voting experience in the 2020 election, as well as the current political climate in their cities. Let's take a look. Was this the first time you voted, or have you voted before?
This is not the first time I voted. I have voted before. I have been voting since 2008.
I voted in the 2018 midterms, and then I voted in the primaries this year, but never for president. This was my first actual presidential.
What was the experience this year in comparison to previous years under this new normal that we're experiencing?
For me personally, physically going to go vote was the same. They did, in my particular county, just like many counties all over the state of Texas, they did limit the amount of places to vote. But due to that happening, I was still able to still go to where I was designed out to go to, had my voter registration card and my ID, was able to walk up, sign in, no problem.
Okay. How was your experience? Can you
It was very
describe
good. It was quick and easy. Everyone that I saw was wearing a mask, and people were separated enough to where I felt safe, like I wasn't going to get sick near them.
Okay. What are your thoughts on voter fraud?
I think it's real. I think that not either side or party, but I think that they're trying to make it happen, especially with the drive-through votes being tried to be thrown out.
Voting fraud is a crime that is being addressed by people across the board and across the world. That is something that needs to continue to be addressed. Do I think it is rampant and as hurting the country and in voting as much as it does in other countries? No. But do I have an illusion that it's not happening? No. I know it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What can you say about the political climate or atmosphere right now in Conroe? And can you also describe the Conroe area for people who don't know where it is?
Okay, so first, Conroe is sort of near Houston. I think that the word to describe it would be tension. I think that you have very radical people on both sides that love their party and they love who they're going to vote for. And I think you can step on many people's toes just by at this point looking a certain way, because it is so down to the wire and people want who they want to win bad.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What can you say about the political climate or atmosphere right now in Huntsville? And can you describe Huntsville for people who don't know where it is?
Absolutely. I'll first describe where Huntsville is. Huntsville is 45 minutes on I-45 north from Houston, Texas, and about 3 hours south of 45 on 45 from Dallas, Texas. It is a college town, second, and number one, it is known as for its prisons. For the political atmosphere, it would base upon where you end up going in the city. You end up around the college, and when you start dispersing out from there, you end up seeing a lot more Biden signs, and then you do Trump signs. But when you leave there and you start going out more, you'll start seeing more Trump signs. And then, but when you go into the different neighborhoods around Huntsville, you will notice by looking at houses that will look more wealthier and better built, you'll end up seeing a few more Trump signs than you will Biden. But when you go into, for example, the northern part of Huntsville, where you end up seeing a lower demographic in lower income homes and housing. You'll end up seeing more Biden people.
How did you feel about these past 4 years under this presidency?
I have felt the country literally go into a divide with, just different views on things and different ways to see everything and see the world and see how you treat people. And I think it's really changed drastically.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that they were very educational because it was a very much reflection on what the Republican Party and what they were wanting to do in the direction that they were wanting to take the party. And the fact that even before him, and you look at President Obama and President Bush, and going back a little bit, you really couldn't see total, you got the feeling that they were trying to do a few things here and there, but they really weren't getting pushed what they particularly wanted. But once President Trump had got elected, what he particularly wanted to do and what the party really wanted to do was really pushed forward, and you saw their agenda and the direction they wanted to go in went in that direction.
Right. What are your hopes and expectations regarding the next 4 years?
I would like to see, continued progress in terms of what the American people are wanting, and that people continue being speaking out about the things and issues that are very important to them in positive, safe, non-violent ways. If people are wanting to talk about, be involved in the economy, great. But that's not robbing a bank is not the answer, to get wealthy. It's doing it in other ways. The same way with positive social justice. Again, protesting and marching peacefully is great. But it's once people start overturning vehicles and assaulting people, that's when you lose your message. And it's lost, because what you had going and what it turned into was not what your original intent was. So
I hope that people become more compassionate. I hope that they are more open-minded and they plan to see things from another person's point of view. One person's reason for thinking this way might be really huge in their life, and a lot of people don't care to understand that. So I just hope people's hearts get bigger.
Mm-hmm. Reporting from Houston, Texas, I'm Jessica Isidro, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Jessica, for that report. Joining several states who have said goodbye to single-use plastic bags, New Jersey takes a firm stand for the environment with what is considered the strongest bag ban in the nation. In Sicklerville, May Ann Manzano-Garzon reports.
Thank you, Alan. In a report released by the Office of the Governor of New Jersey, Governor Murphy, on Wednesday, November 4th, signed a new law banning businesses from using single-use plastic bags, polystyrene food containers, plastic straws, and paper bags in New Jersey. The new law is said to be the strongest bag ban in the nation. Governor Murphy said in a statement that with the historic bill signing, we are addressing the problem of plastic pollution head-on with solutions that will help mitigate climate change and strengthen our environment for future generations. Starting May 2022, both plastic and paper single-use bags, as well as disposable food containers and cups made out of polystyrene foam, will be banned. Paper bags require resources and energy to produce, contributing to pollution. Moving forward, the focus throughout the state will be on using reusable bags. The following products will be exempt for an additional 2 years after May 2022. Bags wrapping raw meat, polystyrene butcher trays, bags used for loose items like produce, bags that hold fish and insects from pet stores, dry cleaning bags, newspaper bags, bags carrying prescription drugs. Under the new law, starting November 2021, food service businesses will be allowed to provide single-use plastic straws only upon request. Senator Linda Greenstein, Vice Chair of the Senate Environment and Energy Committee said, quote, "If you go to the shore, you see plastic bird in the sand and floating in the ocean. There are an estimated 150 million metric tons of plastics currently in our oceans, and about 8 million metric tons are added each year." Cindy Ziff, Executive Director of Clean Ocean Action, said that for over 35 years, thousands of their volunteers have collected over 7.2 million pieces of trash, mostly plastic, off New Jersey's beaches. New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Commissioner Catherine R. McCabe said in a statement that by banning single-use plastic bags, Governor Murphy and our legislature continue to make New Jersey a national leader in environmental protection, and the DEP stands ready to implement these new measures and educate the public. Meanwhile, Alan, for some weather update, it's currently 9 o'clock in the evening here in New Jersey, and it's currently clear. It is 54 degrees Fahrenheit or 12 degrees Celsius. The high today was forecast as 69 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, May and Manzano Garzon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
So, man, let's talk about this new law. What will be the penalty, if any, for stores or businesses that just don't abide?
Well, Alan, yes, there are penalties. So for stores that will break these rules, the law allows for a warning for the first violation, a $1,000 fine for the second violation, and $5,000 fines for the third violation and every violation after that. Also, Alan, the fines collected would go to Clean Communities Program Fund, which pays for litter cleanup grants across New Jersey. Alan?
So California, Los Angeles in particular, has had the reusable bag law for quite some time. What about for yourself? Is that something you're already doing, or will this be a new thing for you? And if so, do you think it'll be a big adjustment?
Well, Alan, I am a self-proclaimed environmentalist. So every time I go to the grocery store, I really try to remember to bring a reusable bag of my own so that I don't use the plastic bags in the supermarket and the store. So for me, I believe it won't be a difficult adjustment. And I actually am happy personally that New Jersey is finally moving forward with this law, because according to the news also from the governor's website, it's been suggested years before. But thankfully, the administration right now is doing something about it. Alan?
Excellent. So, man, you're actually trending. Now, I actually have a bit of experience when it comes to the type of bags, or rather the size of bags that I like to take with me. And for those states that are just newly trying to figure out what kind of bags they should get, my only recommendation is, and I'm sure you can agree with me, is make sure you have at least a few, if not many, oversized or big bags, because you really want to make sure you're going to be able to fit that baker's dozen donuts that need to fit, that you take home with you from the bakery. Speaking of National Donut Day, Mayan, before we let you go, can you give us a clue, just a clue, of what your favorite donut might be?
Well, Alan, it has a feeling, because this feeling really makes me happy. So I know there's a lot of donuts that has filling inside, but this thing just gives me joy. So it's been my favorite since I was little.
Well, I can't wait to find out. My clue for you, Mayan, is that my donut is sometimes not considered a donut. I'll let you percolate on that during the break.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayan.
Thank you.
The COVID-19 pandemic has undeniably increased unemployment rates in every state. In New Jersey, let's find out how the numbers are looking this week. Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez files this report.
Thanks, Alan. The Department of Labor here in New Jersey
released their weekly unemployment numbers on Thursday. Here's Governor Murphy with more details.
Last week, roughly 24,700 workers submitted an initial claim for unemployment benefits. That's a decrease of more than 2,500 from the prior week and the third consecutive week of decline. Tell that to one of the people who file for unemployment insurance. That will give them little solace. But still, overall 1.7 million New Jersey workers have filed a claim since March, and more than 1.46 million workers have met the monetary requirements to receive benefits. Boy, this is one huge glaring area, and please God, we don't wait till either this administration re-ups or a new federal administration comes in office. We need federal stimulus at many levels, especially for the folks who are unemployed. They deserve that continued bridge that works so effectively in the spring into the summer that has been taken away from them. All totaled, more than $18.4 billion has been released to our unemployed and underemployed workers.
And as for coronavirus stats and numbers, New Jersey reports of 2,104 new positive COVID-19 cases, pushing the total to 247,219. Sadly, New Jersey is reporting 12 new COVID-19 deaths, pushing the total to 14,603 lives lost. In Union Township, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you, Carlo. When we come back, updates from our Eagle News correspondents in Sacramento and Glendale, California. Plus, Las Vegas Bureau Chief Anna Cui will join us in just a little bit. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming diling kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, kumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon
nakukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panic sa iba.
Kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19
ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo
sa black propaganda
at maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Omelda,
General Partosa,
Tyranel Pililu,
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC
Japan Bureau. We live in interesting times.
This is Eagle News America. I'm Alan Basoyahe in Los Angeles. In Sacramento, Macy Membreri updates us about California voting in favor of Prop 17, that is granting of voting rights to parolees. Take a look.
Thank you. Election day has concluded, but ballots are still being counted. Although the election for the presidency is the most popular item on the ballot, it is not the only thing that people are eager to hear about. In Sacramento County, there have been a total of 342,756 ballots counted, with an estimated amount of 372,300 left to process. Now, according to the Secretary of State, results will be finalized no later than December 11th. On this year's ballot, there were a number of propositions included, which have already been called by the Associated Press. Among those propositions called was Proposition 17, which would allow people who are on parole in California the opportunity to vote, and even run for office. That currently has a tally of 59% voting in favor of this proposition. Those against this proposition believe that voting rights should be given after a person on parole has been rehabilitated into society and not be given prematurely. In Sacramento, California, Macy Membrari, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Macy. Amid brewing unrest after Election Day on November 3, claims of voter fraud have been put out there. However, in California, Los Angeles County assures voters that their ballots are safe and tallied correctly. In Glendale, Eagle News correspondent Annabelle de Mesa has the details.
Thank you, Alan. Los Angeles County assures voters that ballots dropped off at official drop boxes are secured, processed, and counted. The Los Angeles County Registrar Recorder or County Clerk tweets today, all drop boxes were closed and locked at 8 p.m. on election night, and ballots were collected the following day. These are valid ballots that will be processed and counted during the post-election canvass, like all outstanding vote-by-mail ballots. They further clarified that the insertion slots are closed and locked at 8 p.m. on election day, so no ballots can be submitted after the close of polls. These statements are in response to circulating videos showing election officials still picking up ballots after official drop boxes a day after the election, although various media outlets have already made their announcements after the closing of the polls the night before. County officials further state, this office doesn't call elections. We administer the election and count all valid votes cast in compliance with California's election code. Media and pollsters make their calls based on statistics and trends. We certify after all votes are counted. It is apparent that this election year is unlike any other we have experienced in the past. With the various unprecedented events that have taken place this year alone, it is now evident more than ever that Americans have made it their priority to cast their votes and have their voices heard. It's no surprise that this election year has brought much anxiety to many voters with not only what the results of the election would be, but also the safety and security of their mail-in ballots. Sheriff Alex Villanueva, a sheriff of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, ensured Angelinos the security and safety of their ballots. He explained that throughout the voting days, sheriffs would securely transport completed ballots from precincts to the Los Angeles County Registrar or a quarter tally center in Norwalk to ensure that all ballots are properly handled and counted. This process will continue until all the ballots are tallied. From the second post-election results update given this afternoon, an additional 156,410 vote-by-mail ballots have been processed, bringing the total election results count to 3,538,953 votes. In Glendale, California, Annabelle de Mesa, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Alan.
Now, Annabelle, how were these ballots securely transported to the Central Tally Operations Center in Downey?
Well, Alan, according to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, their deputies assisted in the safe and secure transport of the ballot boxes from poll workers through their patrol vehicles and even at heliports throughout the country. At these heliports, the deputies placed the ballot boxes into helicopters, where they were then brought to the Central Tally Operations Center in Downey. It has been their responsibility for years now in safeguarding the delivery of voting ballots.
Well, you know, we saw that video there of law enforcement, sheriff's county. And, you know, Annabelle, when you think of law enforcement, what do you automatically think of? You think of donuts. And so I'm going to ask you, Annabelle, can you give us a clue about what kind of donut you might be mentioning when we talk about National Donut Day?
A clue I can give? The donut is as delicious on the outside as it is on the inside.
That sounds quite tasty. Well, I have to be fair. I should give you a clue as well, something for you to think about during the break. I said earlier that my donut is sometimes not considered a donut. That's one clue. The other clue I'll tell about my donut is think about falling stock prices. That's my clue. That's my clue. I hope you have an idea. Yeah. All right, Annabelle, thank you for the report.
Thank you, Alan.
In swing state Nevada, ballots are still being counted as the country awaits who takes it, Trump or Biden. An election official today explained about the number of ballots left to count there as Biden holds a narrow lead. In Las Vegas, Bureau Chief Anna Cui is with us tonight. Anna.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I've heard many times since Election Day, all eyes on Nevada. Well, according to unofficial results, former Vice President Biden has over 431,000 votes, while President Donald Trump has over 367,000. That's just here in Clark County. And according to Joe Gloria, who is the registrar of voters here in Clark County, no final results will be announced until the last day of ballot tabulation on November 12th, 2020. Now, Gloria said that of the total ballots the county has received, 63,262 have yet to be counted. Among that number, 4,208 were received from the U.S. Postal Service on Election Day and November 4. 34,743 were ballots dropped off by voters on Election Day, and there were 24,311 mail-in ballots that they had to that are pending to be processed. That's when they had to stop because they had to prepare for Election Day. So today, when he was asked, there are over 51,000 ballots that will be counted by election staff, and results will be reported by 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time tomorrow. So just to be clear, Alan, that 51,000, over 51,000 is not included in that initial number that I gave, which is the 63,000. In addition to that, more than 60,000 provisional ballots were cast during early voting and on Election Day, and those are also still waiting to be processed. Gloria also mentions that there's a group of voters that are requiring ID, and they have until tomorrow to supply that, otherwise their votes won't count. And then, not to mention, we have the mail-in ballots that they're waiting for that were postmarked by November 3, Election Day. They have, according to Nevada law, until November 10th for those to be counted. Then, of course, we have the mail-in ballots he mentions that need to be cured. Those are the ballots that, whether voters forgot to sign or whether the signatures don't match. So Gloria said that he is not aware of any improper ballots being counted when asked about the allegations made by the Trump campaign. He said that they are following the law guided by NRS in this process. And Gloria added, and I quote, "Our goal here in Clark County is not to count fast, but we want to make sure we're being accurate." When asked why it's taking so long for them to count all the ballots, Gloria said that, that's because there are stages in the process. Just because they claim that the Agilis machine that they're using can process, up to 70,000, doesn't mean, it's not that easy. It has to go through process. First, all the ballots are scanned by the machine, which stamps them received. Then, if there's any question about the signature, matching, it goes to a bipartisan audit team, which then manually looks them over, process them. And then finally, if, the signatures don't match at all, they are then, taken to the cure process team, right? So it's not that simple. There's processes different stages of the process that they have to follow. But Gloria did say that they anticipate the bulk of the mail ballots received and already entered into the system will be counted by the weekend. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Alan?
Anna, how are they making sure that no one actually votes more than once?
Yeah, that's the big claim by the Trump campaign, right? We've also heard the President Trump said that people can vote twice if they're using the mail-in ballots. Well, here in Nevada, Joe Gloria explained that the Agilis machine that they're using scans every ballot. And then as it scans, it stamps it receive. And database are updated each time. They're also waiting for the 1,300 laptops that they use on Election Day. That data are being downloaded today. He reported that earlier this morning during the press conference. So they're also waiting for that. And what will happen is the automated system will then reject any mail-in ballots for those who showed up also on election day. So that's how they explain that no one can vote more than twice because the system will recognize that they already have it in their database. Alan?
Las Vegas is one of the best cities in the world to get something to eat. I mean, just about anything you can find under the stratosphere when it comes to food, you can find in Vegas. And speaking of, we're talking about National Donut Day. Anna, can you give us just a clue of what it is you're going to be talking about when you talk about donuts?
It's going to be fruit flavored.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, again, I need to be fair. I'll also give a hint. Earlier, I gave the hint that you have to think of falling stock prices. That was the hint earlier. The other hint I'll give is the outside. The outside can either be frosting or glazed. That's the hint I'll give you. I hope you have an idea when we come back and we talk about it in our discussion.
Okay, well, think about that, Alan.
All right. So when we come back, business news with Bobby Soriano in New York and stories about communities helping communities. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Wow!
You are a breath of fresh air.
Boses pa lang, I am very satisfied.
All package ka na.
Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po ang ating paghahanap ng pinakamagagaling na singing artist. Dalawa na po ang nakaabang sa ating quarterfinals and only one spot remains para sa bubuo na magtatagisan sa semifinals. Ang papasok sa ating sing-off ay walang iba kundi si
everyone, Net25 Kids is inviting you to EBC Webinars 2020, a series of educational and informative webinars for teachers and parents which will be live streamed via Net25 Kids YouTube page. We will be featuring several guest speakers with years of experience to share information that would be valuable and helpful for teachers and parents as they educate and manage their children in these interesting times. Hope you will join us! For updates, schedules, and more information, please follow the Net25 Kids Facebook page.
Sila ang mga kinikilalang bayaning may mahalagang papel para makamit ang kalayaan at pagbabago sa Pilipinas. Pero sa panahong ito, may mga bagong bayaning nakikipaglaban sa sakit na lumaganap sa buong daigdig, ang COVID-19. Ang ating mga frontliner gaya ng healthcare workers, mga doktor, nurses, medical technologists, at iba pang health professionals, mga pulis, sundalo, security guards, mga tauhan na nangangalaga sa seguridad at mahahalagang pangangailangan ng bawat komunidad. Ang mga bagong bayani ating pasalamatan. Kilalanin ang kanilang sakripisyo at serbisyo para sa lahat.
We're inviting you to watch Himig ng Lahi this week.
Mapapanood ninyo ang inyong mga paboritong singers at ang kanilang mga pinasikat na awitin.
Paminsan-minsan ang alaala mo'y why can't it be? Why can't it be the two of us? Gabi na lang sa pagtulog ko, ikaw lang panaginip ko. Mahal kita, yan ay alam mo na. Huwag kang mag-iisip na ako ay nagbago na sa'yo. Di ko magagawa. Nagkulang
toilet paper at tissue boxes mo. Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming dilim kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, kumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon.
Nakukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
Maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panic sa iba.
kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19.
Ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo.
sa black propaganda
At maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Omelda,
General Partosa,
Tyranel Pililu.
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC,
Japan,
Euro,
we live in interesting times.
Abby Soriano of our business desk in New York gives an overview of the U.S. presidential candidates and their positions that affect the business world. Bobby.
This November, millions of Americans went to the polls to decide the direction of the country for the next 4 years. And while waiting patiently for the results, many of them have placed their hopes on what their candidate can do for them. But for businesses with good management, a company can't simply rely on hope and change. They need to be prepared to navigate any scenario that would drive economic and business policy for years to come. So today, EBC brings you a look at the candidates from a business perspective and what businesses and investors will look to in a Trump re-election or a Biden presidency. Now, we could go through every industry and every sector of the economy, but we'd be here all day. So for the sake of keeping it brief, we'll look to highlight the main campaign promises for the industries that tend to see the most regulatory change between presidencies. But before we even do that, we look at the one issue that affects everyone, Republican, Democrat, consumer, or investor, taxes. Corporate tax policy is one of the issues that can not only have long-lasting effects on a company's bottom line, but also the revenue of the country itself. The decision to raise or lower the corporate tax rate, which is the direct tax imposed on the income or capital of business entities, can affect a company's decision to invest into building more factories and hiring more workers, put off spending, or relocate to another country altogether. Under a Trump second term, the president has suggested that his second-term agenda would be more or less likely the same. And why change it? Prior to COVID, U.S. markets were seeing record highs as companies faced lower direct tax costs due to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which effectively reduced the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%.
Under the Trump plan, we will have a massive tax cut for businesses and massive tax reform and simplification.
The lower taxes allowed companies to spend more on projects that created over 300,000 jobs, according to the independent nonprofit Tax Foundation, an organization dedicated to analyzing the effects of tax policy changes to the economy. With the pandemic now hindering the economic growth promised by the TCJA, experts predict Trump will look to spur growth by further tax cuts in the form of additional tax credits to companies that create jobs in certain opportunity zones, which the Trump administration hopes will foster more investment in lower-income regions. On the contrary, the Biden tax plan looks to return corporate tax rates back up to 28% and roll back tax cuts for high-income individuals and families.
I'm going to raise taxes. I'm not going to raise taxes on anybody making less than $400,000. But you won't pay a penny more. But those making more than that, I'm going to ask them to finally begin to pay the fair share. I'm going to ask the big corporations and the wealthy to begin to pay.
It is a hope of a Biden administration that the increases in taxes collected from corporations will be enough to support much-needed social welfare programs and direct assistance to lower-income and middle-class American citizens. But for businesses already reeling from a decrease in revenue from their COVID pandemic, they may not be able to keep current employment levels if higher taxes need to be paid. And it is projected that U.S. GDP will decrease by 1.68% if his policies are enacted. Now we take a look at an industry that the two are completely at odds with each other: healthcare. The positions of Trump and Biden on healthcare can be quite simply summed up as Trump wants less Affordable Care Act and Biden wants more. The Affordable Care Act, which is former President Obama's landmark healthcare legislation that expanded healthcare coverage to tens of millions of uninsured Americans in 2010, may no longer exist in its current form regardless of who becomes elected to the presidency, as challenges to the legality of the law will be taken up by the conservative Supreme Court next week. But certain policy positions have been born from the ACA that both candidates look to implement in one form or another that will affect businesses in the healthcare industry, namely insurance and pharmaceutical companies. If re-elected, President Trump will look to continue to make healthcare the responsibility of states, under the premise that state officials would enact healthcare laws that can serve their constituents better than any nationalized healthcare system could.
And I think we're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan?
For former Vice President Biden, he would further expand ACA coverage to include people making 4 times the federal poverty level.
He promised a health care plan, but never even offered his own bill as he continues to try to wipe out Obamacare in the middle of a pandemic.
So how exactly would this impact businesses in the healthcare industry? Well, truthfully, neither position does. Because while the policies enacted by either candidate might adjust the individual's out-of-pocket costs, insurance and pharmaceutical companies will still continue to receive their profits either through direct payments or as subsidies enacted by the government to pay healthcare companies on behalf of patients. This, along with legal restrictions on what American citizens can do to find alternate sources of coverage, is the reason why healthcare costs continue to remain high, as the healthcare industry sees little competition outside of itself to drastically lower their premiums and healthcare costs it freely passes on to the American people. But that might soon change regardless of who is in office. The reason? Both President Trump and former Vice President Biden believe that drug prices are too high, and that the healthcare industry needs more transparency. According to an NPR summary, both candidates are looking to increase the requirements that healthcare companies provide more disclosure of the costs they pass down to the consumer, so consumers have a way of negotiating for cheaper prices. Both candidates also want to expand the importing of drugs from other countries. So while their feelings towards the ACA might get all the headlines, it's positions like these that might genuinely affect the bottom line of the healthcare industry. Lastly, we take a look at the energy sector, with oil, gas, and coal-producing companies hoping for a Trump re-election, while greener companies are hoping for more support by an elected Biden administration. President Trump has not been shy in his denial of climate change, and believes that boosting oil and gas production will further lower energy prices for the consumer and reduce reliance on foreign energy exports. The president also supports legislation for $38 billion in clean water infrastructure investment, although this does contradict his stance on further rollbacks to environmental protections. A Biden administration, on the other hand, would be all in on policies that support clean energy investment, with a promise of $2 trillion over the next 4 years dedicated to the research and development of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It's readily apparent that clean energy companies would benefit greatly in grants and subsidies provided by Biden presidency. But oil and gas may not necessarily experience the same euphoria under a Trump re-election. Even during President Trump's first term, the oil and gas sector has seen continued decline in value as consumer trends are beginning to embrace clean energy solutions, and they look to further see decline in usage, at least in the near term, as the pandemic continues to limit energy consumption outside of households. Now, whether it's energy, healthcare, or taxes, regardless of who wins the White House, businesses and investors will soon be able to put the uncertainty of the election behind them and focus on the uncertainty ahead of them. Reporting from New York, Bobby Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Bobby. Now time for some feel-good stories about neighbors helping neighbors. In Hawaii, the Church of Christ's Aid to Humanity initiative has touched several communities and their leaders. Eagle News correspondent Charmaine Serrero reports.
Today we're holding what we call Aid to Humanity, in Filipino Tagalog, Lingap sa Mamamayan, which means we are helping our fellow man who may be dire, who may be in need, maybe they are elderly.
This activity launched by the administration, the aim is to help the people, especially now in this time of pandemic, time of disasters. Actually, it is done all over the world today.
In celebration of the birthday of Iglesia Ni Cristo Executive Minister Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, members of the INC in the Hawaiian Islands of Kauai, Maui, and Big Island conducted various forms of outreach for their respective communities.
So we're offering 150 bags of food to anyone who comes through, and it's just a drive-by. They come in the car, 3 bags, we give them 3 bags, they drive out. So in and out, the most efficient way, and make sure that we keep them safe by keeping them away from COVID-19.
In the island of Kauai, for example, members hosted a drive-through free food distribution for those affected by the pandemic, to include the elderly. Grocery items like rice, noodles, and canned goods were provided. Church members in Kihei, South Maui, meanwhile added a personal touch by visiting house to house safely to deliver bags of dried packaged foods, as well as essential items like face masks and hand sanitizers. INC members like those in Lahaina, West Maui, provided similar relief goods, as well as contact cards and reading materials for the beneficiaries to know more about the global church. Over in the Big Island, a government official from Hawaii State House of Representatives visited the chapel compound in Keau and shared with Eagle News her impressions on the generosity of the members.
I am grateful that Iglesia Ni Cristo is doing this food drive for the community. Puna, on the island of Hawaii, is one of the most underserved communities in the state of Hawaii. We have more than 50% poverty level or below. You don't see many homeless on the street because the community takes them in, and you will see a number of Filipinos, for instance, have multiple families in their house because they take care of each other. But that doesn't mean that they are housed, because really you will see more than one family to a bedroom. They really do need the food within the families to be able to house, especially now when there are a number of people who are jobless because of the COVID-19 crisis. So I'm also grateful for the community.
We see how many people today, especially here on Big Island, are losing their jobs, getting laid off. You know, it affects everybody. And as members inside the Church of Christ, we just want to help. And that's what we're doing today. We're having our Aid to Humanity on the birthday of our executive minister.
This activity will also help in recognizing the church and cause more people to be more interested, to know more about this church, and hopefully call more people to inside the Church of Christ.
Even as far south as American Samoa, Church of Christ members participated in this worldwide effort by personally delivering free face masks to a nearby public school.
The officers and the brethren here in the District of Hawaii Pacific are united with the church administration in doing these kinds of activities like Aid to Humanity. The reason is because we want to obey the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ written in the Bible, which is to love our neighbor, to help those people who are in need, especially those who are affected by this pandemic.
From the local congregation of Lahaina, Ecclesiastical District of Hawaii Pacific, we would like to greet our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, a happy birthday po! Aloha!
Happy birthday, Brother Eduardo. I really appreciate you on your birthday to celebrate it by giving to others. In Hawaii, we call it Hau'oli na Hanau. So happy birthday. Thank you so much for doing this for us and our community.
Reporting from the Big Island of Hawaii, there's Charmaine Serrera for Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, in Pacifica, California, another outreach of the Church of Christ has made a community smile. Rachel Martin has the story.
Here in Pacifica, California, members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ are gathering for an Aid to Humanity community outreach event here at Terra Nova High School.
In alignment with the birthday of the executive minister of the Church of Christ, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, the church launched Aid to Humanity events in 2 sites of every congregational district across the world. This district held theirs in 2 locations, Pacifica, California, and in Shoshone, Wyoming. Special guests in attendance at the outreach event were Daly City Mayor Glenn Sylvester, City Manager Shauna Maltby, Terra Nova Principal Megan Carey, Terra Nova Education Foundation President Rachel Cataruccio, and Terra Nova Education Foundation board members Julie Arnaldo and Rita Sargent. COVID regulations for the event were followed by all attendees. The Church of Christ made the donation of $10,000 and several Chromebooks to aid the Terra Nova Education Foundation and High School in their goal of strengthening and supporting the community.
The community is known by the School it keeps, and we want to keep that pride going for Terra Nova High School.
Daly City Mayor Glenn Sylvester reiterated the value of helping one another in these times of unrest.
What I look to is the giving and the heart and the genuine care and passion for everyone else. So to the Church of Iglesia Ni Cristo, maraming salamat. Thank you. Thank you.
From Pacifica, California, I'm Rachel Ann Martin reporting for Eagle News.
In observance of National Donut Day, let's ask our team what their favorite flavors of donuts are. Why don't we start off with Anna? Anna, please tell us your favorite donut.
My favorite donut, Alan, it's always been chocolate glaze, simple enough. But last year I got to taste mango cream, Krispy Kreme donut. So that is now my favorite. But unfortunately, I can't find it here in the U.S. So I'm back to my chocolate glazed. Alan.
Well, chocolate glaze isn't such a bad runner-up. Annabelle, your favorite donut?
My favorite donut are definitely the apple fritters because they're filled with fruits, the apples, the cinnamon, and then they're glazed over, often with high fructose corn syrup, but sometimes people put condensed milk in it and it's so good. It's not the healthiest donut you could eat because, I mean, just because it's filled with apples, it's not healthy. It's still deep fried and, coated in high fructose corn syrup, but it's still one of the most delicious guilty pleasure donuts you could ever eat.
Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that because my favorite donut is actually closely connected with your apple fritters. And I did give you a clue earlier, I'm hoping somebody will have an idea what it is I'm talking about. But before we reveal mine, let's talk about yours, May Ann, your favorite donut.
Alan, mine is definitely Boston cream. I like the balance of chocolate glaze, like what Anna mentioned, and the smooth, creamy filling like vanilla custard. Alan?
Makes my mouth water just thinking about it. And Mayanne, since I have you on right now, I want to ask you, I'm going to tell now my favorite donut. Any idea what it might be based on the clues I've given?
You said it's very close to fritters, apple fritter.
Yes.
Maybe blueberry fritter.
All right. Well, let me tell you that my favorite donut is sometimes not considered a donut. Sometimes they think it's a pastry. But I get it anyway whenever I buy my baker's dozen. It's a bear claw. A bear claw. And just like the clue I gave, when you have a failing economy or stock prices are falling, they call it a bear market. And so that's why bear claws are my favorite. But the other reason why I like bear claws, they're the biggest donut you can possibly eat. Size is what I go for. All right, well, now we want to also continue to not only thank the bakers, but to thank also our healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers with a round of applause. We appreciate you. That is today's Eagle News America. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alan Basoyahe. We live in interesting times.